Welcome to From Stuck to Scaled Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses, your guide to navigating growth, transformation, and success in today's ever-changing business landscape. Each week, we'll dive into proven strategies, real-world case studies, and actionable insights designed to help small and mid-sized business owners scale smart, lead stronger, and grow faster. Let's get you unstuck and on the path to sustainable, scalable success. Now your host, Julio Gonzalez.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Julio Gonzalez, and today we delve into a transformative journey that many entrepreneurs can relate to. Have you found yourself grappling with late-night frustrations, wondering how to turn those challenges into opportunities? Today, we're exploring the story of Josh Bronfman, who illustrates how everyday problems can be the bedrock for building a scalable brand. Armed with a background in motorcycle racing and custom builds, Josh turned the late-night frustration into a thriving business that's reshaping the landscape of scalability and entrepreneurship. His journey highlights the challenges of moving from an idea to execution while balancing the demands of leadership, family, and personal development. Join us as Josh shares invaluable lessons on addressing common operational setbacks, building trust in crowded markets, and leveraging the lessons from setbacks as stepping stones for growth. His insightful perspective serves as a beacon for founders and small business owners looking to navigate the turbulent waters of entrepreneurship with resilience and a clear focus on problem solving. And let's welcome Josh to the show. Welcome, Josh.
Julio, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah, so I'm Josh Bronfman. I am the CEO and founder of Dreamer, and I'm a certified sleep science coach as well, which has been a fun journey. But yeah, Dreamer is it's a sound machine that we made that is new in our space because we have a lot of science behind it. We actually use science-backed frequencies that help our nervous system, help our blood pressure calm down and really set the stage for our bodies to feel safe to sleep. So we're really excited about where we're at. It started for babies, but we found that it works for anybody with a brain. So we're getting some good sleep over here as well.
I am one of those restless sleepers, so I'm really excited to learn more about Dreamer, excuse me, and everything that you're doing. But you got started in motorcycle racing. So how did you end up, making a sleep machine?
Yeah, I've had a very interesting path to Dreamer and sleep. I started actually in policy in Washington, D.C. I was a ski patroller in Utah for a while.
Nice.
And then, my dad and I started a motorcycle coaching school, which led us to a professional team in our domestic U.S. based league, I guess you would say. And, I was actually not, after I stopped racing, because not only am I a big guy, but racing takes a toll on the body, and it was just, I'm getting old. And when we had our first son, Henry, actually our only son, but when Henry was born, we had a sound machine that was recommended to us by some friends, and we live in Phoenix. So we actually traveled to California to get out of the heat. He was born in June, and if you've ever been to Phoenix in June, it's 115 degrees.
Brutal.
So it's brutal. And in the middle of the night, this particular unit decided to shut off. And when it shut off, Henry turned right on. And, parents, like brand new parents at 3 weeks, there was a, few holy bleep moments, right? And and my wife turned to me and said, "You need to fix this." And, I know that she meant fix it in this immediate moment. But, this had what I didn't realize at the time was you needed a screwdriver and AA batteries to turn this thing back on. And, this is 2022. And it's like, my God, with all the technology we have, why am I using this, flimsy plastic machine that in the middle of the night gives me no ability to reset? So for some reason that fix it comment turned into, how can we somewhat revolutionize the industry and make it easier for parents like ourselves to, we have a USB-C plug-in. So most people have, a USB-C cord lying around their house, as simple as, plugging it back in. So we added a ton of stuff, but in this journey, we really dove into the science of sound that was brand new to me. I had random experiences with sound bowl bass. I don't know if you or any of your listeners have had those, and they're fantastic, but didn't really realize how that could be applied practically into something that we use every day. So it's been an interesting journey, and I've been a good consumer in my life, but I've never actually made a consumer product. So it's been a very, we say always be learning, and we have learned a lot in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I bought, one of those cheap Amazon, noise machines, and it's like, do you want the fan or do you want the dryer or the vacuum cleaner? And had that for several years. And finally, it's like, it's just annoying noise. So I ended up getting rid of it and dealing with the silence or lack thereof, right?
Yeah.
What did you find is the secret to restful sleep?
Well, I think there are a lot of factors to that. And that in getting my certified sleep science coach, there was a lot of things that opened up. But in terms of what you spoke about with the with our old, like, when I was a kid, my parents would put a fan on, or like you said, some of the cheap ones on Amazon. So that, they're just variations of white noise. And
Mm-hmm.
white noise is okay, but the problem is it only is there to mask other noises, right? So, you're living in New York City or anywhere, you've got sirens and all this stuff going on. It does a decent job doing that. Part of the problem, though, is that most parents or most people play it too loud. And especially for young kids with developing ears, it can actually be more damaging. So, what we wanted to do was say, look, there's not only with sleep, but just the science of sound. There's so much research that's been done in the last 20, 30, 40 years of how this can actually help. I mean, these are not ancient. These are frequencies that have been around forever. But, ancient humans really harnessed the power of this. And we seem to have forgotten some of the magic of these. And so what we wanted to do was say, okay, instead of blocking noise, instead of just saying, we just want our kid to fall asleep, because I think most parents know when they go to sleep, it's kind of your respite. You can kind of take a little bit of a break. But how do we facilitate this falling asleep for our kids? Because no one, especially, even kids, you don't just fall asleep, right? It's not a light switch. Our brains are actually made to feel safe to fall asleep. Back in caveman days, you wouldn't fall asleep if you knew there was a lion lurking around, right? So we've evolved with that sleep, fight, or flight, so to speak. And that's where, these frequencies of regulating the nervous system, where they're, like I said, lowering blood pressure, lowering cortisol. And that has been one of the big pieces, to answer your question, of restful sleep. I think as we get older, those factors, all those factors seem to matter more than when you're, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, even though their sleep might be more impactful as their brains are growing.
So tell me a little bit about the process that you've been going through. I'm in the process of building a consumer product. It's an app to help care for seniors, excuse me, seniors aging in place. But you're building a physical product. So, slightly different, because you're dealing with manufacturing and, probably, OEM manufacturing overseas. So what's your process been like? And you can start from, the design process even.
Well, that's exactly where it started. My background is a little bit in art and design. And so, that it literally started probably like in a movie, right? I just started drawing different concepts on printer paper, wanting something that was easy to grab in the middle of the night, that, we wanted it to have some silicone on it so that it was not only safe for teething, but our daughter took our dreamer and threw it across the room, and my wife and I both went, "Oh my God," and picked it up and it started working. So, the dreamer process started, with my wife and myself with the concept. And then we brought another co-founder in who was much smarter than I am on the technical side of everything. So we did everything in-house. We did all of our prototyping on a 3D printer for about a year and a half, 2 years. Nick was mixing silicone in his kitchen, trying to find, some of the right concepts, textures, and everything. And we created our own PCB, our printed circuit board, and our firmware is proprietary. That's all created in-house. So we took a good 3 years to really say, how can we do this ourselves? Because we knew that if we kind of brought it to another place, it'd be more expensive. And we really wanted to kind of endeavor to do this in-house because we thought we had the tools, and luckily we did. And I think the great thing about some of this is all relationship based. Like, we had a friend who was using our manufacturer and introduced us to them in a time when we said, I have no clue where to start. Like, how do I find a manufacturer that can do everything we need, right? Print the PCBs, make the ABC plastic housing, then make our dual injection silicone. Like, it was just, again, not consuming well, but not making a product. It was like, where do I go? So that's kind of where we went. That fell into our lap, and he's become a good friend. This guy, George, who owns the factory out in China, and we've just kind of been rolling with those punches ever since.
Now, you went probably a little bit different route from others that would look for, I'll say, an off-the-shelf product that you can customize, right? Because there are, I'll just say, sound machines out there that you could theoretically, put in your frequencies and your audio and so forth. Why go through the creation process versus an easier route of taking something off the shelf and enhancing it?
I think the easiest answer is I didn't really realize what work we were putting ourselves into, to be honest with you. I think from, those early just design, ideas, spitting out ideas onto printer paper, it was just, why. So I guess most of the sound machines out there on the market right now are a particular shape because they're built around their speakers. So sure, they're, circular or some sort of a circle-based dome shape. But we're parents that travel all the time. My wife's from Australia. We go to Australia every year. We're always kind of moving around with our kids. And so I wanted something that could throw into my back pocket or would go into our diaper bag easier. And that's also why, a lot of them have these old school tassels where kind of hard to explain, but, you loop it around itself and dangle and, being active people were like, there has to be something out there that can be more malleable with our lives. So we created a proprietary silicone strap that actually has a magnet on it, so that you could leave it on a stroller, a car seat, the crib, and actually just modularly take the Dreamer from space to space. And just, it's literally click, click, click. And, so basically, if you've got your iPhone, it's the shape of an iPhone. It's actually smaller than the normal sized iPhone. And we wanted something that felt familiar in the hands. And again, it was like this, we have this phenomenal novel idea. Oh my God, this is going to be really hard. So, but I think we thought that it was going to be, or we think that it's worth it, right? We are the only ones in the industry that are really using this shape, and really the only one that's an all-in-one. Like we consider ourselves the laptop of the industry. A lot of people have their desktop at home, so the one they keep next to their kids' beds, and then they have one for travel. And part of the issue with that, and bringing some of the sleep science coaching, is bedtime consistency. So for us, we wanted the Dreamer sounds and the frequencies to be introduced to our kids so that no matter where we were, when they started hearing those sounds, their brain would know, oh, okay, it's time to start going to sleep. Rather than, well, I've got this device, and then when I travel, I got this device, and then, oh my God, it broke, and now I have to buy a new one wherever I am. So the sleep consistency was a big deal for us as well. So it wasn't really planned on being this complicated, but it's been a labor of love for sure.
And what would you say is the biggest misconception that you had, looking back now, about bringing a physical product to the market?
I would say the initial part for all the, prototypes and everything we did was the easy part. Bringing something to market, especially I think in a parent-driven market where trust and reliability is paramount. And it's one of those industries where one parent would say to another, like, do you have X? Of course I have X. Like, that's the one to get. And then they keep recommending, like, it's all this pretty organic recommendation from parent to parent. So I would say that's been the go-to-market and market sustainability has probably been the biggest challenge for us, especially as a small company that, some of our competitors are spending 6 figures a month on marketing and advertising. And we just, unfortunately don't have that ability yet. So pretty much everything we've done has been organic sales. And I think it's been a double-edged sword because in a positive way, we have really tried to get out to real moms and dads and parents to say, look, I don't want a paid promotion from you. I really want this to work for you. And, of course, I think any company obviously wants to make money, but, we want people to have a better time sleeping, a little less anxiety for bedtime with their kids, because that's ultimately what we wanted. And, if everyone's sleeping, everyone has a better chance in operating the next day in a better way. So, yeah, that's probably been the biggest overall challenge, is navigating our advertising world in a very organic way.
And how did you manage to make that shift from fix it to actually getting it, to actually pursuing that dream, let's call it? Because so many founders have an idea and only take it halfway. They start a business, but they never really get to that transformative stage. A lot of time it's self-limiting beliefs. So, why were you successful, or what drove you, to really take that leap?
I think for a few things. I think that, it was a new challenge, and I really wanted to see if I could do it and see if, this was something that, was hard. I mean, I've done a lot of hard things in my life. I mean, like you said, I learned to race motorcycles late in life. And so that was really intriguing for me because it was something that was so hard. And so for this, it was kind of the same path. And I think for, most small business owners, it's the support around them. I would give all of that. I had self-belief, but I would give a lot of the credit to, my wife, our co-founder, and, we're all bootstrapped by our families. And so, our immediate family really helped us to say, you know what, I believe in this. And the great thing is that they're honest people. They would have said, I don't believe in this if they really didn't. So, I think we all had a concerted vision to say, you know what, I think this is something that can really help people. And we really believe that we can capture some of the market share. And, sound machines are something that are growing globally. They're really something that's really prevalent in the US, but it's growing in Europe and Asia as well. So, we really thought that creating something of true quality and connectivity, like we have an app as well where you can connect, that you can, do a lot of things to manipulate the dreamer. But there was that kind of belief. I think that was it. I think that there were a couple times where we're like, I don't know, that's not the prototype I really thought about. That's not really, it was like, this is not the direction I really thought we were going. And, it took a lot of different prototypes and planning and scratching our heads and saying, God, like maybe this isn't going to happen. And, taking a few weeks and saying, I think I have an idea. And so that was, I think, the nice thing too. Like we really didn't have a rush to go to market. It wasn't something where, we really thought about creating a company, really, right? It was more, we really want to be focused on the product. And we were lucky enough to be able to take our time and really figure out a way that made sense for us to put this out there to people.
You're listening to From Stuck to Scaled, and we're speaking with Josh Bronfman about how a midnight frustration turned into a product for him that he is building with his co-founder and support of his family. And Josh, one of the things that I run into sometimes, again, I'm building, this software platform, is imposter syndrome, right? There are competitors out there. There's, companies out in Silicon Valley, in my case. Did you run into any, imposter syndrome that, beyond the challenges of how do I do this, right? But did you ever run into imposter syndrome, and how did you break through from that?
We really didn't actually. I think we were lucky in that, the people that are the giants in our industry are pretty locked in with kind of what, everyone has like a new product here and there. But we also were very quick to patent our design. That was very important to us at the beginning. Way before we even launched, it was like, this is where we're going and this is what we want to protect. And I think the cool thing about us is that we're speaking as the CEO and founder, but we're the only one that has a sleep science coach internally. There are other doctors and people that maybe are like ambassadors for these other companies, but we wanted to be science first. And again, we don't own these frequencies. They're naturally occurring. So we can't patent those, but I think the incorporation of them was something that we novelly did. And we wanted to kind of protect that in terms of our firmware and how we were doing that as well. I think just what we were doing was kind of novel, and we're hoping that we can kind of sustain that. Because in the same sense, and not to kind of divert a little bit, but we've had the questions of, well, why wouldn't you just play some of these sounds on your phone? Because there are apps like the Calm app and stuff that are great, and you can kind of get these frequencies in there, but you're not actually getting the full benefit of those frequencies played from your phone because they're essentially a recording, whereas we're able to create them from the Dreamer. So in the same sense as the sound bowl bath that I mentioned earlier, you're getting a lot of that benefit because the sound vibrations that are meeting your brain. So that's what we wanted to create. We actually have a golden ratio sound port at the back of the Dreamer that if anybody remembers the old Bose side unit that had the CD player in the middle, that's what Bose uses, because that golden ratio sound port has not only amplifying characteristics, but the ability to create that vibrating frequency tone. So we kind of, and I think that's where, like the previous question, like, why would you just make this whole thing? It's like, because no one's doing this. And I don't want to just recreate something that's crap and make it slightly better. So I imagine that we'll probably see more of that in the next 5 to 10 years with more research that's coming out on these frequencies. But we're pretty confident in what we're doing. So we're hoping it stays that way.
And going back to my poor sleep habits, is there a version of the Dreamer for adults, or is it just for kids?
So the Dreamer works for anybody. We are working on creating a different silicone cover that maybe is more attractive to adults. But that was kind of the cool thing. I remember when we kind of had our production version when our daughter was born. So about April of 24. And my wife's, in there nursing and trying to put Charlotte down. and we had the dreamer on, and she came back out. She goes, man, she really quieted down, but I actually really calmed down as well. And that's kind of when we were like, well, maybe we should put this in our room too. And so we literally sleep with the dreamer every night in our master bedroom. And we have someone, a veterinarian back in Phoenix, that actually uses it in her veterinary practice. So really anybody or anything with a brain can benefit from the dreamer. So for her, she has a skittish or anxious animal that comes in, she'll pop the dreamer on, and those frequencies talk to the animal's brain. Because they're, it's not, what we're doing is not necessarily focused on the baby. I think maybe our form and function was really designed for parents.
Sure.
But like I said, we're that laptop where we sit it next to our desktop wherever. When my wife travels for work, she brings it with her. So it's great for anybody that wants to use it. I've sent this to grandparents who have it for their kids, and they're like, I'm actually going to buy another one for myself because I sleep better. So, I think that there's, like I said, maybe a more attractive silicone, because we have, this sage and peach color, and we have the moon and the stars, which is beautiful. But the concept itself, like even the stars that we have on our front, and I'll have to send you one, Julio. But they're amber lights. So a lot of these other sound machines that have night lights have these bright lights that actually mess up our circadian rhythm. So for us, again, we have a certain light frequency that helps somewhat mitigate the blue light that's in our life and our kids' lives. And then when that's twinkling, it's actually not affecting any of your sleep patterns while you or the kids are sleeping. So trying to create an adult version of that matches those patterns is something we're working on. But yeah, it works for everybody, which is really cool.
Yeah, I definitely need to check it out, because like I said, I'm a terrible sleeper. So let's talk a little bit about the sleep science, since you're a sleep expert.
Working on it.
Why do so many people struggle with sleep?
Well, I think a basic answer to that is we don't put enough emphasis on the concept of sleep, right? I think we all just have, it's kind of like breathing for us, right? Like when you're meditating, you're intentionally breathing, you're, intentionally doing things to calm you down. Sleep's kind of the same. It's one of those where it's like, well, everyone sleeps. And it's like, well, actually not really, but it's kind of this thing that just goes over our head. And, it's not just some wellness fad that's coming around right now, right? Like sleep is something that we all need to take very seriously, because it is the basis of everything else that we do. If there's a triangle of health and wellness, and let's say it's sleep, what you eat, and what you do for activity, well, sleep actually dictates how you do those other things, right? If you're sleeping poorly, you're probably not going to eat very well. If you're not eating very well, you're probably not going to be able to train very well. And that also has a debilitating, effect on your brain function, right? And how your muscles grow, or even processing emotions, right? A lot of people just don't get into full sleep cycles. So a sleep cycle is about 90 minutes, give or take, for subjective people. But if you say like, I got 8 hours of sleep, but if it was 8 hours of broken sleep and you only got in that stage 1 or 2, you're hurting. I'd rather have 5 hours of straight, 3 or 4 full cycles, because that's where, it's your hormone factory. It's your emotional processing factory. It's your ability for your body to reset and grow and process. So, sleep, especially with all the devices and things we have in our lives, right? I mean, people are sitting there scrolling Instagram, and it's like, oh my God, this and this and this. And then all of a sudden we see their cortisol spike. And it's like, well, you're not going to go to sleep if your cortisol spiked. So I think being intentional about sleep is something that we all need to do a better job at. Even as a sleep science coach, we put the kids down, and my wife and I, next thing we know, we've watched 3 Yellowstone TV shows, and we're like, oh my God, it's 11:30. That was stupid. But some of the things that I talk to the people I coach with, right? It's like, you've got to start this process an hour before, right? Turn the screens off, grab a cup of tea. Some people take a warm bath or a warm shower. I definitely recommend, especially for myself, I know it works, is taking out a book and reading. We have these really cool book clip lights that are amber, kind of like the Dreamers, that don't affect your circadian rhythm, and actually trying to do things that, again, signal our brains to feel safe to fall asleep. Eating close to bed, big no. People, who drink. I mean, I'm not against anybody who's drinking, but when you have, a couple drinks an hour before bed, you might fall asleep, okay, but man, that 3 a.m. wake up, or it prohibits your ability to go into deep sleep, is pretty profound. So long answer to your question, I think it's intentionality for this, right? I think it's we had this whole bravado culture of I'll sleep when I'm dead, and I just keep working. Well, you're not going to be the best CEO, the best leader, the best parent, the best friend if your brain's not functioning or your body's not functioning at tip-top shape. And one other kind of, for us men, there's if you're a man, that the statistics show, if you're a man who has less than 5 hours of sleep for a week, you're going to lose 10 to 15% of your testosterone. That was a big thing. I was like, wow. And testosterone does so many things for growing, aging men. And it's a similar thing for women, right? Like I said, this is your hormone factory. So I think we've kind of been stuck in this, I'm just going to power through the day and I'm just going to keep going and sleep. It's fine. Like I can only, the people are like, I can perform on 2 hours of sleep. It's like, yeah, okay. I don't believe you. You're lying. So again, long answer, but I think that's like having, people have sleep journals. People have, hey, alarm at 9 o'clock, shut the phone down, turn the TV off, and really just let your body just kind of, watch your heart rate lower for an hour. It'll work.
Yeah. And I love those tips, because so many business owners, they may not be in the office, they may not be working, but they spend all night, me included, just constantly thinking, and for me, one of the most important things is, and I don't know if this is, what a sleep journal is, because I've not had one, but writing things down to just get it out of my mind, right? So if I'm obsessing on something, it helps if I just get up, write it down. It's like, I know I'm not going to forget, because part of the obsession is I need to do this and I'm going to forget,
Yeah.
So trying to remember. So, business owners need a lot of help, a lot of tips to really be able to get to where they can sleep, because they are, worrying about so much, and in many cases don't know how to turn that off.
And again, being in this development stage with Dreamer and everything, I've been exactly what you were just talking about, right? And even with that and some of the coaching, it's, writing down your to-dos for the next day, right? And that same concept what you're saying. So you're not waking up at 2 and like, oh my God, I have to do this tomorrow. Like, get your list done. Not only does it help us in that way, but, there's a ton of studies out there that actually say handwriting notes or handwriting your thoughts, you have an 80% chance, a better chance of retaining that information. So, it gives you an ability to kind of take a deep breath, so to speak, and say like, okay, well, I'm not just like, oh yeah, shoot, I got to do that. And then you fall back asleep. Like you said, even if you wake up in the middle of the night, it's good to write those things down. Because it just gives our system a way to kind of say, got it, put that off to the side. I'll get that in the morning. Yeah, turning the brain off is so hard. And I think that, and the hard thing with that is it all compounds, right? Like your brain's working on business and you're like, well, shoot, I can't sleep. So I'm gonna order a pizza, or I'm gonna go grab a snack. And then, you know what, like, yeah, I'm gonna grab a glass of wine and it just resets. So all of a sudden, an hour before bed, you've eaten, you've drank, and you're stressed. And so it's, it's this hard, and I know I have so much empathy for that scenario, because, life is hard enough as it is, but to start something from scratch and really try to push it out is a challenging endeavor. So I think that and being kind to ourselves, right? I think that's kind of the hard thing is giving ourselves some space. Because again, if you're just screaming at, inside the brain, you're never going to sleep.
Yeah, and that's a big one because we are very hard on ourselves. As humans, we're hard on ourselves as parents, and when you throw a business on top of that, there's more people that depend on me, right? So we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace, give ourselves a little bit of time to organize and plan our day. Because for me, my day and night starts first thing in the morning, right? If I don't have a good plan for the day, if I don't close out the day, then that worry extends that much further into the evening. If I know that, I've wrapped my day, and yes, things are gonna pop up into your brain, and write those down or whatever, to get it out of the way. But there's a whole process, that I think goes with finding that peace to be able to sleep.
I mean, there's a I don't know if it's a common saying, but we talk about in some of the your sleep starts at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Right when you wake up. So it's not starting at night. And I think we all, at our very core, want to be the best versions of ourselves, right? And so there's actually a study that Dr. Matthew Walker did. He's kind of a sleep guru. If anybody, he's got a great book called Why We Sleep, and the first 5 pages are terrifying in terms of how poor sleep affects us. But they did a study where, if you get poor sleep, you are, I think the statistic was you're 60% more likely to snap or take a situation in a more aggressive way than you normally would have. So, for those of us who are parents or we have employees, right? Like we want to be able to, or I want to be able to deal with those issues in a calm, empathetic manner. And if, the reason that I'm snapping at somebody is because I didn't protect my sleep, or, kids are going to do things and mess things up and spill. And it's like I've had a reaction before. I'm like, that felt somewhat out of body. Like, that's like, why did I snap at that? Or why did or even with our partners, right? There's another study that, if you're sleep deprived, you will actually see someone's face in a more of a fight or flight manner. And something benign is like, I got to do the laundry or something. It's like, well, blah, blah, blah. It's like, wait, why are you responding that way? I just kind of made it. So, it's amazing how the fact that we're able to study sleep, but what it actually does to, or can negatively affect our relationships, our ability to walk the earth in the way that we kind of want to. So I think that when we kind of look at it that way, it's like, well, man, if I can just protect that, everything else kind of falls into place, or at least has a better ability to fall into place, I would say. I mean, that's for each of us to decide. But, I think especially like becoming a parent and all that, it's, what I've learned about sleep is, man, I just want to be the best for my kids and for my wife. And if getting good sleep is the meal ticket for that, I'm going to try and harness that the best I can.
And since you brought that up, how has becoming a parent changed your leadership style, your risk taking? I mean, because having come from, motorcycle world, that was a high risk activity. So how has parenting changed you?
Well, the risk factor has gotten less and less physical, I would say that. Yeah, I think it's definitely calmed me down. I mean, I don't know if I'm necessarily risk averse, but I think, just I think it gives me some pause, right? In a positive way, to kind of try and look at things in multiple ways, and just kind of trying to be kinder with, not that I was a badger before, right? But just trying to kind of take those few extra breaths and say, like, what's the right path here? How do I want to look back on this? And whatever the situation may be, and be proud of at least whatever I chose, even if it was the wrong decision. And, I think that just navigating that with my family, right? And again, I think that's the biggest thing. Even if it becomes a wrong decision, or I want to be able to stand behind that with the best of intentions, rather than um, make snappy decisions based on a whim. So I think it's probably calmed me down quite a bit, for sure.
So, Josh, one last question. Looking back at your evolution, your transition, even, what advice would you give a business owner that's looking to make a big shift or has a big idea that's really, driving them to something new or different?
I think that if you have something in your life that's really pushing you to do something that, again, to go back, is not just a whim, right? It's not like, oh, I just want to, I'm in this new space and I just want to create a new company, right? Crypto, whatever. Like, if it's something that you're really passionate about, even if it's something that ends up not going in the direction or the final, if obviously you're not selling this for $10 million. Well, if you did it with the right intentions, I think I'm a big believer in, these are all stepping stones for life, right? These are all learning experiences. And I think that passion is something that a lot of us are lacking these days. And I just, man, if you have that, if you have something you're passionate about, I just encourage you to the moon to pursue it. Try and find a good team that can help you with that. I think that's kind of one of the biggest, even with AI, people saying, oh, you can, run $1 billion company by yourself. It still takes a village. You still need support. And I think that's kind of, you never know until you do it, right? It's, that was for me with, some of the skiing I've done, the motorcycle rate. Like, if I did it and failed, at least I tried. I think that a lot of us are scared to just even try. And that would be, and I think, no matter what the outcome is, you'll feel good that you at least made the effort.
So you've given us some great tips, and that right there was a great tip also. But no one leaves the show without providing some actionable tips that our listeners can implement today. So what would you tell our listeners something that they need to stop doing and start doing just today?
Well, I guess I would ask, is this about sleep or is this about a business? Because
either one, because sleep is their business.
Yeah. Well, I guess intertwined, right? I think it goes back to, we have all these ideas. We have, like you say, our motors are running all the time. And I think that, I think sometimes as business owners and small business entrepreneurs, we kind of have this, and I know that I've had it and I've had to learn, is this kind of like entrepreneurial ADD in that sense, right? Where it's like, I got to fix this and I got to fix this and I got to fix this. I think kind of taking a step back and doing one thing at a time, right? Like it's hard to do all these things unless you have a big team. And so take your time with that, go one task at a time and don't overextend yourself. And then in that sense, get the sleep you need, right? Like give yourself an actual sleep routine. The thing that matters the most is actually your wake up time, necessarily your sleep time. So, if you're a person that goes to bed, at 11, I wouldn't suggest going and staring at the ceiling at 9 o'clock. It's just not going to work for you, but set that alarm, right? My alarm's set no matter what day of the week at 6 a.m. So if it's 7 a.m. for you, great. Try and be consistent with that. Shut the lights off at an hour before you want to go to bed. Stop eating, even water or tea, right? Waking up to go to the bathroom breaks you out of a sleep cycle. And just try and protect that sleep. I think that you'll find the benefits in your business, your relationships will be more profound than you actually think they are.
Well, thank you very much, Josh, for coming on the show. This is our episode of From Stuck to Scaled, and this all really resonated with me because then again, I'm a really bad sleeper, so I appreciate how Josh transformed his frustration into a scalable solution while navigating the challenges of entrepreneurship. Remember, the path to success is rarely straightforward, but with persistence, adaptability, and a focus on solving real problems, you can move from ideas to execution. If you found value in today's discussion, I encourage you to share this episode and connect with us for more insights. Until next time, stay curious, stay resilient, and keep scaling your dreams. Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having me.
You've been listening to From Stuck to Scaled, Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses, produced by Opticution, LLC. For more information, tools, and resources, check out our website, www.opticution.com/podcast.